There's a reason most moviegoers don't pay attention to background audio. It's meant to be invisible, a subtle layer of atmosphere that guides emotions without demanding focus. But in a few films, those who listened closely heard something else. Not score, not dialogue, not Foley, but something more intimate, something not meant to be there. In these movies, buried beneath orchestral swells or hushed dialogue, are sounds that resist explanation: faint breathing in an empty hallway, a whisper with no speaker, a gasp that isn't synced to any character. They're the kinds of noises that don't show up in sound logs, that engineers don't remember recording, and that some fans claim disappear entirely when the film is re-released. In several cases, those sounds only existed in early VHS or international pressings, never to be heard again. Sound designers, the gatekeepers of cinematic silence, have occasionally broken their silence. One even confessed, the waveform was there, but no mic had picked it up. Nothing was patched into the channel. What kind of breath slips past the boom? What voice echoes when no one is on set? Today, we dive into 15 films that captured audio no one was supposed to hear. Are they errors, hoaxes, or the product of something or someone else entirely? What if the sound engineer wasn't the only one listening, but wasn't the only one being heard either? The Blair Witch Project, 1999. No film blurs fiction and reality like The Blair Witch Project, but one sound, caught near the end of the film, may have blurred something more. As Heather enters the abandoned house, screaming for Mike, her voice echoes through the halls, but layered beneath, so faint it's almost missed, are multiple voices, some crying, some whispering, one breathing heavily. The filmmakers, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, were pioneers of found footage horror. They've often stated that 90% of the sound was constructed from field recordings. But when asked about the climax, Sanchez once admitted, "There are sounds in that final scene that none of us remember recording. The breath loud, wet, almost inhuman appears only in the Sundance cut and a rare early DVD pressing. Later versions seem to have scrubbed it out entirely. No waveform metadata exists, no source mic is identified. Even more chilling, an early cut shown to test audiences included a subtitle cue at the moment of the breath, unknown source. That cue was later removed. What happens when you catch something on tape and no one on the crew was there to make it? Hereditary, 2018. Ari Aster's debut is dense with visual clues, but the most chilling moment may be purely sonic. During the attic sequence near the film's climax, as Annie scrambles through shadows, there's a beat, no score. No screams, just the ambient creak of the house. And then, distinctly, someone whispering, "Peter." It's not Annie's voice, it's male, low, urgent, almost pleading. No character is visible, and most viewers miss it entirely on first watch. But when isolated, the whisper is undeniable. A24 never commented. The sound team, when interviewed, denied adding the line. Reddit sleuths noted that the waveform doesn't match any recorded vocal profile in the 5:1 mix. Even more bizarre, when played backward, the whisper forms a different word entirely: open. Theories ranged from subliminal design to ghost voices embedded in the mix. But Aster remained silent. When finally asked in a podcast interview, he smiled and simply said, "Hereditary is full of sounds no one was supposed to hear. What if one of them was real?" Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Roman Polanski's slow-burn horror classic is soaked in dread, not with what it shows, but with what it suggests. But one moment, buried deep in the third act, may suggest too much. As Rosemary stares through a peephole at her silent neighbors, there's an unnatural stillness, and then, like a breath across the ear, "We see you." It's not in the script. It's not attributed to any character. No one's mouth moves, but the whisper exists audible only in some VHS and Laserdisc versions from the 1980 seconds. In later DVD and Blu-ray releases, it vanishes entirely. What's stranger? Sound editors revisiting the original mix in 2003 reported no such audio file ever existed. The studio chalked it up to fan imagination, a case of pareidolia, hearing patterns in noise. But one mix engineer disagreed, claiming the whisper had a distinct stereo placement, implying intentional spatial design. Polanski has never acknowledged the anomaly, but when asked about the scene in a rare interview, he said, "That moment was about paranoia. Whatever people hear in that silence is their own, but what if it wasn't?" Mulholland Drive, 2001. David Lynch's sound design is famously cryptic, and Mulholland Drive is no exception. But even for Lynch, one moment feels too real. In the club's Silencio scene, just before the music begins, a stillness takes over the room. And within that stillness, a dry, whispered word, "behind." It doesn't belong to any character. It's not part of the ambient soundscape. And unlike the surrealism that defines the film, this whisper is grounded, harsh, human. What's strange is that this whisper doesn't appear in all versions. Only in the 2002 Japanese DVD and a limited European theatrical run, fans who've tried to match the voice to Lynch's known actors found no correlation. The voice is male, middle-aged, slightly rasping. An audio engineer who worked with Lynch admitted, under anonymity, that some mixes left the studio with tracks we didn't authorize. We were told not to question it. The whisper, when reversed, reportedly sounds like, "Don't go back." But that's a fan theory, and in Lynch's world, even that could be misdirection. If silence is part of the performance, whose voice interrupted it? The Witch, 2015. Robert Eggers' The Witch is meticulous, with every sound engineered for discomfort, but one moment defies engineering altogether. In the scene where Thomasin prays alone in the woods, the soundtrack falls eerily quiet. For 6 seconds, there is only wind, and then a sound like a human inhaling sharp, sudden, directly into the mic. Eggers, known for his historical accuracy and obsession with sonic texture, stated in interviews that this scene was recorded entirely in ADR. No ambient mics were live, yet the sound, which doesn't match Thomasin's movement or breath, appears in the theatrical release and early Blu-rays. A YouTube video attempting to isolate the moment became viral, claiming the breath contains a reverse echo, a studio effect never used in the film's analog production. A sound technician later explained that the breath violates the acoustic field. In short, it echoes before it happens. Eggers denied adding the sound. The studio issued no statement, but folklore experts have pointed out that the breath's timing coincides with a moment of spiritual vulnerability in the scene when Thomasin is at her most exposed. If something was listening, could it also leave something behind? The Exorcism of Emily Rose, 2005. The line between performance and possession was always blurred in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, but one moment in the courtroom scenes crossed into something stranger. During a nighttime shot of Father Moore sitting silently in his cell, the camera lingers. No music, no voiceover, but in the silence, something else creeps in, a low, trembling chant in Latin, just at the edge of hearing. It wasn't in the original script, and it isn't subtitled. What's more, it doesn't appear in the 2006 director's commentary, yet multiple viewers heard it and some even recorded it. When slowed down and enhanced, the chant loosely translates to, "He listens when they speak." Fans uploaded clips to forums, prompting debate. The studio denied intentional inclusion, claiming it was a compression artifact misinterpreted as structured sound. But an ex-sound technician claimed that the mix used field recordings from a cathedral session that was abruptly cut short due to unusable interference. No one ever confirmed what that interference was. The Latin chant does not appear in the Blu-ray remaster, only in the first-run DVD and some digital copies pre-2010. Since then, it's vanished or been erased. If the film warns of spiritual intrusion, what slipped into the audio before the audience ever pressed play? Poltergeist 1982. Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist is filled with chaotic sound screams, static bursts of energy, but one moment toward the end has always bothered fans. As Diane Freeling escapes the collapsing house, clutching her children, the screen shakes and the score swells, and then, amidst the thunder and music, a deep, guttural whisper, "It's still inside." The line is not listed in the script, it's not spoken by any character, it doesn't appear in subtitles, yet it has haunted viewers for decades. When the film was re-released on DVD in the early 2000s, several fan forums dissected the moment. Audio engineers analyzed it. The phrase appears across both stereo channels, but off-sync, as if stitched into the track after the mix. A behind-the-scenes documentary confirmed that the original audio files were missing during the final mix, leading to some emergency substitutions. However, no mixer has admitted to adding the phrase. Even more unsettling, a fan who worked in projection during the film's initial run claimed he heard the line differently each time. Sometimes, it was a whisper, other times, a hiss. Once, It allegedly said, "It won't leave. If a house can be haunted, can a sound mix be too?" Under the Skin, 2013, Jonathan Glazer's minimalist sci-fi horror relies on alienating soundscapes and eerie silences, but in one scene when Scarlett Johansson's character silently observes a crowd from inside a van, there's a strange, layered audio presence. Amid distant traffic and faint ambient hum, you can hear a raspy, almost wet breathing, far heavier than Johansson's calm demeanor would imply. The scene is silent, visually no dialogue, no score, just ambient tones. But when viewed with high-end headphones, the breath becomes intrusive, like someone breathing directly over the mic. Multiple sound mixers have commented on the film's creative use of real-world recordings, but none have taken credit for that particular sound. What's curious is that the breath isn't consistent across releases. It's clearest in the UK Blu-ray, missing entirely from some digital versions, and no waveform for the sound appears in official audio stems released for analysis in 2020. The line between what's in the scene and what's in the room becomes blurred. The breath doesn't match any spatial placement. It isn't from Johansson. It's not part of the field recording, and yet it's there, or was. If the alien was watching us, who or what was watching her? Don't Look Now, 1973. Nicholas Roeg's surreal tragedy is best remembered for its editing and symbolism, but some viewers remember it for a sound they were never meant to hear. In the film's final chase through the Venetian alleyways, there's a moment where John Baxter turns a corner, and the music fades. For just a breath, the soundtrack holds still. That's when it happens. A child's giggle, barely audible, completely out of place. Roeg's film has no such laugh scripted, and no children are on screen during that shot, yet the laughter is unmistakable, soft, high-pitched, and unnervingly close. Fans first reported the anomaly in bootleg VHS copies, and later in select European DVD editions. But modern restorations, Restoration specialists claim they removed non-diegetic noise artifacts, suggesting the sound was accidental, but an assistant editor anonymously claimed that the sound did not exist in any of the original reels, and that its appearance on early home releases was technically impossible unless someone added it post-theatrically. What makes it more unsettling is that the childlike figure at the end of the film, the one that isn't what it seems, never laughs. Not once, not even in the climax. So, who did? Insidious, 2010. James Wan's Insidious is designed to unsettle, but it may have done more than intended. In the infamous scene where Josh enters the further, the soundtrack thins out, giving way to eerie silence. But during a wide tracking shot, a voice is heard, soft, male, frightened. It's not done. It's not part of the score. It doesn't match any character. And it doesn't reappear in any other part of the film. Even more curious, that voice is only present in the theatrical release and early streaming versions, but not on DVD or Blu-ray. Foley artists later stated that no such line was included. The composer, Joseph Bishara, denied adding any vocal elements at that moment. Sound designers claimed the reverb profile didn't match any of the studio mics used and seemed to echo as if recorded in a smaller space than the scene depicts. The studio never addressed it publicly, but a now-deleted Instagram post by one of the assistant editors read, "Some things made it into the final mix that weren't in the project file. I couldn't explain it then, and I still can't now." Was this the voice of a character, or a mistake that left something else in the frame? JFK 1991. Oliver Stone's JFK is packed with layers, political intrigue, overlapping dialogue, hidden clues, but in one moment, the sound mix does something strange. During a courthouse hallway scene where Jim Garrison walks past reporters, there's a flicker of near silence, and then a muttered phrase, "He didn't fall." It doesn't match any speaker, no lips move. The line doesn't appear in the subtitles, and yet it's clearly audible, as if whispered directly into the viewer's ear. When fans reached out to the film's post-production team in the early 2000s, most dismissed it as a phantom sync artifact, but some weren't so sure. Audio engineers dug into the mix and found that the phrase wasn't on any labeled voice track. It appeared on a stereo channel normally reserved for room tone, not dialogue. This room whisper became a mini-legend online, with some claiming it was Stone himself testing subliminal cues. Others saw it as accidental or supernatural. One theory suggests the line was pulled from archival footage and accidentally left in. Another insists it was never meant to be there at all. When the background speaks louder than the dialogue, whose voice are we really hearing? The Others, 2001. The Others, Alejandro Amenabar's haunting tale of grief and ghosts, is known for its silence, not absence of sound, but deliberate stillness, and yet, one sound may have slipped through the cracks. In a hallway scene where Grace Nicole Kidman walks past a series of doorways, there's a pause, and then, very faintly, a rasping breath that sounds like it's inches from the mic. Not a sigh, not wind, a breath wet, slow, and almost expectant. Multiple viewers noted it during early DVD releases, prompting an investigation on online forums. Audio breakdowns revealed a low-frequency spike at the 18-minute mark, lasting only 7 seconds. However, no corresponding movement is seen on screen, and no character is near the camera. A fan attempted to isolate it and upon enhancement claimed the breath ends with a whispered syllable, possibly "don't." Universal Pictures has never commented on the anomaly, and subsequent re-releases have cleaned the mix, removing all trace of the sound. Oddly, international versions of the DVD retained it years later. Even more unsettling, a former post-production assistant said in a since-deleted Reddit thread, "That hallway had no boom, the shot was static. That track shouldn't have had anything but ambient tone. Is this the ghost of an editing oversight or something whispering to be heard?" Session 9-2001, set inside an abandoned mental asylum, Session 9 was already a film haunted by its location, but what truly disturbed viewers wasn't the visuals, it was the sound. In one infamous scene, as the crew walks through a decaying hallway, you can hear a voice, a soft, trembling woman's voice saying, "He's still here." The actors don't react. The scene continues. The voice is never referenced again. Director Brad Anderson has gone on record stating that no such line was in the script or post-production mix. When asked about it during a 2009 Q&A, he replied, "I've heard what the fans are talking about, but I swear, we never recorded that. If it's there, it wasn't us." The audio anomaly exists only in the original Region 1 DVD and some early streaming versions on Netflix US. Subsequent reissues, especially the 2016 Blu-ray, don't contain it. Sound engineers attempting to locate the source found no matching vocal clip in any of the project's archived layers. The spectral analysis showed voice-like frequencies, but no mic spike, no room echo, no expected acoustic footprint. Actors have also denied performing the line. One crew member claimed they used temp audio during editing, but no temp version included that sentence. If no one spoke it, who did? The Ninth Gate, 1999, Roman Polanski's The Ninth Gate is no stranger to occult paranoia, but one specific scene drew attention for an audio detail that no one can officially explain. During the sequence when Dean Corso, Johnny Depp, is studying an ancient book in a silent room, there's a moment when the soundtrack dips to near silence, and in that near silence, a deep exhale can be heard. It lasts less than 3 seconds. It doesn't match Corso's mouth movement or breath rhythm. Even stranger, the sound seems to pan unnaturally across stereo channels, moving not from left to right, but from behind the viewer forward. A 2004 fan restoration project discovered that the breath doesn't appear in every version. It's only present in a specific European DVD pressing with a Region 2 encoding. Absent from American copies and high-definition remasters, the breath registers on the waveform, but again, no mic source, no recorded layer. Even the composer, Wojciech Kilar, reportedly denied placing it in his sound design. Some theorists suggest it was a prank by a rogue sound technician. Others believe the sound originated during a studio session but was somehow not captured by any equipment except the final mix. When silence speaks, who gets to decide what is truly accidental and what is not? The Innocents, 1961. A ghost story so subtle, most of its horror is psychological, but one moment in The Innocents crosses into something much stranger. During a quiet nighttime scene, as the governess walks through the manor halls, a soft, rhythmic breathing can be heard just under the ambient score. It's too close, too human, and doesn't match any character's motion or position. When fans pointed it out decades later, the studio claimed it was natural room tone, yet multiple engineers who worked on the remastered Blu-ray release in 2014 stated that particular sound didn't exist in the master reels. A deeper mystery emerged when sound professionals tried to isolate the noise. It wasn't tied to any track, not the ambient mic, not a separate Foley layer. The waveform showed up, faint and repeating, but only in the British 1961 theatrical print. In every other version, American theatrical, later VHS, DVD, the breathing vanished. Some fans insist the audio was tied to a specific reel that circulated briefly and was then replaced. Others believe it was a mistake that only seemed supernatural in hindsight. Still, the actress Deborah Kerr once remarked in an interview, "There were moments on that set when the silence didn't feel empty, it felt watched. Was this an atmospheric coincidence or a whisper preserved in celluloid by accident?" A Field in England, 2013, Ben Wheatley's A Field in England is a psychedelic descent into madness, filmed almost entirely in black and white and drenched in ambiguity, but during one of its most surreal sequences, a strobing visual montage near the film's midpoint, something entirely audio-based has fueled obsession. Among the disorienting flashes and sudden cuts, a voice begins counting. It's soft, rhythmic, and oddly soothing. 1, 2, 3. It continues up to 13, then abruptly cuts off. There's no character speaking, no subtitle. The voicemail, with a slight tremble, seems to drift outside the spatial logic of the scene. Sound engineers reviewing the film noted that the voice doesn't pan like normal dialogue, but instead phases in and out, like it's passing through a filter no one applied. Even more unsettling, the count is only present in a handful of region-free festival screeners from 2013. All commercial releases, DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming are silent during that moment. Studio reps claim the voice was never in any official cut, yet fans continue to upload clips claiming otherwise. Some have gone further, pointing out that the count reaches exactly 13, the number of seconds the screen flashes pure white before fading back into narrative. Others have suggested the voice belongs to someone not in the cast, possibly director Wheatley himself, though he's never confirmed this. If the film was meant to disorient, what else slipped in while everyone's guard was down? These weren't screams, they weren't dialogue, they weren't score. These were something else captured in the corners of sound, buried beneath the noise, waiting to be heard by someone who was truly listening. Maybe they were technical glitches, maybe they were intentional tricks, or maybe some films don't just tell stories, maybe some films listen back. You've just heard 15 moments that challenge the limits of cinematic sound, and one that refuses to be explained. But the real question is, which one stayed with you the longest? Was there a breath you couldn't unhear, or a whisper that made you pause? Let us know in the comments, and if you've ever heard a moment in a movie that no one else noticed, tell us. We're always listening. This is Darkroom Cinema, and sometimes silence isn't empty.